Hello everyone, how are you guys doing today? Hopefully you had a good weekend and you were productive, you got some work done, because you only have 2 weeks, two weeks left, and then class is over, and then you can try and officially enjoy COVID-19 summer. Now, I know there's been a lot of confusion, or there's been a couple emails that have been going out that that said that for the seniors, grades were due on the 22nd. That's not true. The registrar, the dean, provost, everyone has sent out emails confirming that they are pushing it so that all grades are going to be due on the 5th of May, which is kind of what they sent out earlier. But I guess there was some miscommunication or some confusion, and so now they've officially said it in a couple emails that all grades are going to be due on the 5th. So for my seniors, please, no freaking out. You have until the end of the semester, and we will go from there. All right? Are there any questions, thoughts, or concerns before we actually get started with looking at what people have posted? No? Okay. We will move. All right, there you go. Thanks for letting me know. That was weird. I must have pulled on the cable. Do you hear me now? All good? All right. All right, let's save this image. We'll bring this over. Ping work desktop. We'll just say we'll just call it something else. Senior 1. Senior 1, and you know, if you put these in a PDF, it makes it easier. Alright, we'll talk about this one too. Call this one Senior 2. Alright, we're going to show first. I'm going to go here and show this one in the folder. Drop that one in. I'm going to come here. We're going to find Senior 2. We'll put that in there right away as well. Alright. Alright, so we're going to talk about this one first. Different color. So, I mean, when you at first glance it looks consistent, but you can tell that you're missing your guidelines, right? You're gonna have to make sure that you pull these guidelines, whichever one that you plan on going with, which is generally the front view, because we all draw front views really well. You want to go ahead and line everything up on your front view, right? That way, hopefully everything will line up. And once you see it, like I'll zoom in here in a second, and then once you see it, you'll see just how things are not consistent, right? Knees, ankles, bottom of the back foot, front foot. All right. So, whoops. So if you look here, right, and I break down the face into eyes, nose, ears, top lip, bottom lip, you know, stuff like that. So it gets a lot more detailed when I start breaking it down as far as the character design. But this is the basic, right? Top of the head, even if it's hair, top of the head, bottom of the chin, shoulders, waist, chest, right? So you can do the pectoral muscle here, then this one probably needs to come up a little bit, waist, then wrists, bottom of the fingers, knees, ankles, and then if depending on how you have your feet, back of the foot, front of the foot. Okay, like here. So we have the back of the foot and the front of the foot. So depending on how you actually positioned your feet, right? So if you have them straight on, you only have the bottom of the foot. But if you actually have them tilted like you have here, then you'd have the back and the front of the foot, which makes it hard, right? So it's one thing that you got to keep in mind is if you're going to do these angles that you actually, you know, you really do them right. Okay. Now, both of your hands should be the same size. Okay. And you can just measure, and that comes with the measuring. That's why when you use your ruler, use a light pencil, and then you can draw and ink over everything, okay? But here you can definitely see where stuff is going awry, right? Like here, right? So the hair is too big. Your chin has space, right? And if we pull down these ears, you probably notice that too. Right? And your person's head. So the one thing, a lot of people want to do some interesting poses, right? They tilt the head or they pull the shoulders back and stuff like that. The thing that you want to remember as trying to do this as a beginner is the fact that you really want to keep everything nice and straight to make it easier on you to make sure that your ears, your nose, your mouth, and everything's lined up. Because the minute you tilt it, like if you tilt the head like this, everything changes, right? And it makes it hard for your turnaround. Now, with that said, you can still do it. Like, don't get me wrong, right? The more interesting angles you put in, the more character that you can show about your character, which is great. But I would definitely recommend doing it straight on because it's easier, especially when you're doing this for like the first or second time. Okay? So you just want to make sure that this area, right? That's right. Because if you can make that one right, you can base everything off of the front view. Okay? So you want to make sure that that's something that happens. Okay? And then with these guidelines, you can instantly tell, right? Like the way you have his butt up here is a lot higher than it is here. Okay? And he's getting shorter. Like his proportions start getting shorter here. So you want to make sure that you line everything up. Okay? The character itself seems pretty cool, but you want to make sure you line everything up. Okay? And one of the really easy things to do for your front and back view is just to take this, especially since you're doing it digitally. Take that, copy it, paste it, go to image rotation, flip horizontally. Oops. Did not make... Okay, we're going to go to edit, transform, flip horizontally. Okay? And so now we have this one, right? Now, depending on what you've done, right, you're like, all right, I'm going to line everything up. Now, you do have to make some fixes, right? So the first thing you'd have to do, I'm going to go ahead and put a new layer here real quick. I'll fill this one in. Yeah. But we don't. Just trying to make it so that when I erase his face, it doesn't seem weird. All right. So, first thing you'd have to do, right, is erase. Right, there we go. Okay, what do we do? Eraser, oh. Previous stuff, sorry. Okay, first thing you'd have to do, right, is erase his face. Alright, hairline, okay. You know that's his neck. So we erase that, okay? And then everything else pretty much stays there. I mean, this is wrong, right? Obviously, because we would need to erase this and redraw his feet, right? Because the feet are now coming backwards, and this is why we don't like it to tilt down, right? Because now, right, when you're drawing, you'd have to come in and say that the back of his foot is here, right? And then it tilts down like so. So we're literally looking at him standing up. Right? So it'd be different if this person was in high heels, right? Because then that would make sense, like we see it that way. But since he's not, you should really draw him flat, right? And it's here, right? You see it here when you put in this foot. You're like, all right, the foot's flat. So if the foot's flat, then we wouldn't see it up like that, okay? So you got to keep that in mind. You're going to want to adjust how we see his feet, okay? But now you have the back, right? So now we've just established the back of this character, right? And then you can go, all right, so we say there's where that cuts down, right? This is where these guidelines kind of help, right? And you can go, all right, so from here to here, right? And then the rest of his ear, like, all right, cuts down. So that's the rest of his hair. Right, you just go, cuts out like so. Right, and then his head would be here. Head, that's a different color. We're like, all right. Another guideline here, which means that this part, right? And then if we were to loop it, we're gonna assume, oh, see, and this is the best part, because you have all these guidelines, you can actually just follow it around, right? And you just make it however you're following the back, and you're like, all right, there's a guideline here that means that this pops out like so, right? And then we have his collar, which comes up, and then here, and then pops back down, right? And then there's his shoulder, and these things you don't even need guidelines for, like the shoulders and where the elbows are and the wrists and stuff, because all you did was flip it, right? That's all you did. The only thing you have to do now is go, well, if it was in the front, if the hands were in the front, then in the back, right, we wouldn't see a lot of the hands because they crossed over into the front, right? So that way, it's like, all right, cool, they're in the front, and then you have to look at your hand and be like, all right, so it comes out this way, right? And we would see the pinky here, and then the rest of the fingers come in like so, right? And the same thing would happen here, pinky, right? Other fingers there, right? And if this came in the front, right? If that was in the front view, then in the back view, we would see the rest of this arm, right? Same thing here, right? Come in the back, bam, bam, right? And this way you're not making stuff up as you go along. You've got all these guidelines telling you exactly where everything is, and now I'm just making this background, right? So if you start seeing it there, right, then you know, you're like, all right, well, here's where his butt would be, right? And then we come from out of here, right? And then everything stays in proportion, right? The best thing you can do is to flip that front image, right? You should always, not always, but you should do the front, do the back, and then you can make everything work in the side, okay? But as far as the character himself goes, it looks fine, right? It's very consistent. I see it. Now you just got to make sure that it lines up, okay? Make sense so far? And then with this one, my man is jacked. Right? Super big. But I mean, I understand what you're trying to do. But when it comes to this, all right, when it goes to one to the other, right? So you have this and you're like, all right, I get that. But now you would have to go, right, here's his, because you're not necessarily giving us the breakdown. You're like, okay, so there's a shoulder, here's the cylinder, right, and then hand, right. You're just going, nothing is out of the ordinary here, right? And then if you want, you go a little circle here, hips. Right? And then however you see fit to draw his feet. Right? Neck. Head. I see you kind of like this tilt that you got going on for the head, right? It's kind of like, oh, his head's tilted. But then when you come from this one to this one, his head is at this angle, right? But then here it's straight up and down, right? You got to keep it consistent. That's the main key about doing these model sheets. You got to keep it consistent. But you see how we went from stick figure to the blocked out model. Then you can come in here and say, all right, well, here, look at him. He's pretty jacked type of person, you know, and then you start defining these shapes. And then in the end, we're like, and here's his full-on version, so you get to see how that works, right? So that middle step, you need to give us a little bit more of a definition, because if he was a pear, right? So let's just say he kind of had this shape going on, right? That's important to know. That's why we need these shapes. We need to see how this is going to work together, okay? So if he's just a base box square, we need to know that, okay? All right, good? That makes sense? You guys still with me? Anyone still out there? All right. Wait, no? You guys aren't still with me? Is that what you're saying? All right. Or no, it didn't make sense. Oh man, we don't have a lot. We don't have a lot in the discussion board. You guys stop doing work on me? We're doing so good up to right now. Originals. Download this. Okay, that's good. Anita, were these pictures that you had already taken, or were you able to sneak someone in? Anita just hiding some done. I gotta say, I think you're starting to get it. What? Oh. That's why I'm trying to download the wrong thing. Alright, let's see where they are. This one and this one. Okay. Alright, let's look at these. So here's the original. James Van Der Zee. Alright. This one, which was probably as close as you were going to get to the actual image. This one isn't using my phone. Oh no, I'm sorry. Everyone's computers are dying. Right? I think that you look, this one clearly, right? That's just a mimic of the original image. And then you start telling some stories with these three, right? Like this one is still a staged photo. You're like, okay. But then this one, you're like, okay, there's some story there. And then this one, I mean, this last one really is intriguing. And I'm so happy that you actually took that one. Or is it this new one? You know what? Beat me. We're gonna see this together. Yep. Okay. So you did take it. All right. Good. All right. So you took this one, and you did it. Right? You did. I like this one solely because she's looking over to the side, you know, with that little smirk, and it's like, I like how you cleaned it up, you know, like you're really getting in on that editing. Now what you need to do is push your contrast, right? I think that is one of the things that you're still working on, right? If you look at Brandon's work, he has very strong contrast. Even when it comes to the color aspect of it, it's very strong, right? So you have some nice, crisp lines. Like this is still very soft. Your stuff is very, very soft, right? But if you push on the contrast, you'll be able to tell a stronger story. Okay? If those darks were just a little bit darker, especially with this character, with this this photo, because it kind of looks like she's mischievous, right? And it's just like, oh man, I'm going to do something. Right? And especially with her little hands, right? And it's like, ooh, yeah, we're about to do something bad. If there was just a stronger contrast, the whites were white and the blacks were blacks, you still have all your nice gray in between, right? Your crisp lines. But if you had that, it would strengthen this story. Okay? You got to think about trying to push your contrast. And I have to say, your black and whites are still the strongest you've got. Right? Every time you change it to a black and white, it gets stronger. Okay? But I'd really push on your contrast. But this one definitely tells a story. I like it. Good. I'm liking the fact that you're able to pick. You're starting to pick the ones that have a stronger story. Okay? Instead of the ones that highly resemble the original image. So that I'm very pleased to see that you are taking some of the information and the critiques and stuff, and you're starting to utilize it, and you're starting to pick the images that are really going to work for you as far as telling a story. And once you've nailed that, like once you finally, or you're like, nope, I know exactly, like that one tells a strong story, I'm able to manipulate my lighting and my editing to help and enhance that story, you'll be golden. I know you're trying. I'm just saying, you're getting there. I see it, right? If you keep pushing, and it's a learning process because you are trying to adapt multiple people's styles to try and find yours. And so you're going to get there. It's going to be trial and error, but I think that you are definitely on the right path. This is definitely working. Definitely working. Good job. I like the progression that you're making with your photography. We only got one more. Oh my goodness. That it? No one else? We only had 3 people? That's crazy sauce. Okay. Alright, Devin. Let's save this image. 3-point turn, sure. I know that I know and I know and I know and I know that you said that that neck is supposed to be that thick, but here's the thing, right? Can you look at my logos for graphic design class? I mean, I can. Especially since there's not a lot of other stuff going on right now. This is our last one. But with that being said, okay, because she's not super jacked, right? Those neck muscles aren't going to grow out to be that thick, right? Like if she had traps that were connecting to underneath her ear, right? Then you'd understand why she has this gigantic neck. But she doesn't. I still say you need to just trim this down a little bit. You know? Just trim that down just a little bit. It does. Let's see if I can't stamp some stuff real quick. Try and bring in her neck just a little bit. See? Probably even need to bring this one in just a little bit still. Right? So if you bring her neck in just a little bit, right? It even pushes on the fact that she's really toned and buff. When you start taking that away from her, you know, I think it's going counter what you're trying to do. Okay. We said the second one was fine. Based on her head, it should still be a little bit smaller. Based on her head. Right. So her neck would be a little bit smaller, and I would bring it in. I would bring this in too. And the thing is, it's not by much, but it's still, when it comes to female characters, just that little bit, right, can make or break your character, right? There you go, right? Just bring it in just a little bit, okay? Delete. All right, watch the top of your paper. I mean, it's all the digital drawing. There should be no reason as to why your character's at the top of the paper. But bottom of the horns, chin, shoulders, top of the breast, bottom of the breast, bend of the elbow, end of that, waist, bottom of this hand. Do you see how, especially when you're doing like a bigger pose like this, that there's so much that you can actually switch out and change or put your guidelines to? Knees, end of the crotch. But if you do all these things, like if you bring down all these guidelines, right? If you bring down all these guidelines, you start noticing that certain things are off, right? Like, you would have needed to flip this character. It kind of looks like you did, though. It does look like you flipped it, but that's not the right arm. Yeah, okay. But it's when you started fixing it, you need to make sure that everything stays in the right spot, right? Because if you look at this hand here, it's a little bit shorter. This one, it's shorter than the other hand. All right, so you constantly got to go off and reference that. Now, if we're looking at this character and how ginormous her breasts are, you have to realize, you're like, all right, so you have it here. I'm gonna bring it in, but you have them kind of, they're not the right size. If this is where you're going for, you're like, all right, so these are really big, and in this one, right, she's in like a push-up bra, and in this one she's not, right? So if that's the case, you need to come in, you're like, all right, so that, why is that so big? You come in and you're like, all right, so now you have to round, you know, you're gonna have to round those out. You are the one who gave her these huge breasts, so you need to actually draw them, right? To accommodate for the size that you have. And if she's in a push-up bra, which is giving her the complete roundness of each breast, then you're gonna have to draw it in the side view as well. Okay, it's very, 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 very important that you make that happen. Okay, but it seems like you're following some guidelines, so that's, I mean, that's really good. I think it's just when you do your finishes, you got to make sure that everything stays right. Like you still see all of your proportions. Like, I mean, it's like I said, it seems as though everything is pretty much on point for what you're doing. Okay, although her feet got short here, right? And it's mostly her ankles. So if we see, so it was right there. So there you go. Now you see how much you're missing. Right? You would need this much of that leg. Oops. Actually went too far with that. Based on how you drew it. Based on how you drew it, this would have to be right there. This comes down to here, based on the guideline. So there. So you need this much more. Alright, so this is what's missing. This is how much you'd need to push that foot back. Okay? But for the most part, I mean, it's very consistent. It's very sketchy. So, you know, keep that in mind. If that's going to be your aesthetic, it's got to be the whole way through. Because that is a style. Like, I completely get that. No? Okay. Just checking her waist to see if it fit with her back. One thing that I would recommend is that you make the elbow a little bit more pronounced so that we can see it with the bend. Okay. Besides that, looks good. And I can see that from here to here, you kind of have that one foot kind of pushed back, but then your distance from here to here is a little bit much. Okay, so you want to make sure that you do that. It's just little things. You might need to push it just a little bit. But with that said, there you go. Good job. Little fixes, little fixes. All right, so Jasmine, where did you put it? Hey, Green Star, what's going on? Teaching class here, trying to help some people with their finals and stuff. If you got any questions, just let me know. Still with me, Jasmine? Said you wanted me to look at your graphic design stuff. Did you post it somewhere? Graphic design classroom. Okay. Let's go there. You're looking for artists. I've done concept art for video or for trading card games. If you look up Upper Decks Dark Legacy, that's actually my game. Always interested. All right, so Jasmine, which one are you going with? Or are you asking for help in that manner? Like, tell me which one I should go with. And don't forget, you have to put the person's name in there. You can't just call it Sea Salted Snacks. Right? The whole idea is that we get that person's name in there. Alright, so we got some... Now remember, don't just give us... Don't just give us like an image of some chips or some veggie chips in the side. Like, you can't do that. I want to go with the chips because I have her name in it. Yeah, but that's just a bag of chips. That's not necessarily a logo. That's just a bag of chips. That's the big problem. It's not necessarily that, you know, you have the name there. It's just, that's a bag of chips. Or the second one. See, this, I think the second one is more interesting, right? You have that, that's more interesting, but it's also still not it's not graphic design. Right? It could be. Right? I think that there is something that you can do with those French fries. I firmly do. Or whatever the chips are, you know, it's like I can see that. No other page? What other page? What's it? This one? But see, this, okay, so you have this, it's good. How are you going to incorporate it? It just doesn't. Right now that's salted, you know, it's seawater. It's saltwater taffy is what you have going on, right? You have saltwater taffy, and then you're just saying sea salted snacks. You're like, okay, but these are separate, right? This is, here's my image, here's what it is, but you're not putting it together. You need to combine those together so that it looks like you have something that you could do, right? I'm like, all this is like a picture, and while it can be a logo, don't get me wrong, right? You're like, oh, but it is a logo. I've seen this slapped on other saltwater taffy. Yes, that's absolutely true. But the thing is that we're trying to brand Stephanie's Supersonic Sea, you know, sea salted snacks. And so you gotta kind of put together, the idea of putting that together. Like, I don't know, like have a big S and have rays coming out off of it, like a sonic, kind of like a sonic boom or something like that, right? And you have the S, and then maybe you put some candy on it, and then you can say, you know, Stephanie's salted snacks or sea salted snacks, or, you know, maybe you do the S and then you have multiple S's and it's sea salted snacks, you know, or maybe you go S4, right? And you create like S to the fourth power, and it's, and it just has an S in the 4 or something like that, and then you can actually say, do a line and it's like sea salted snacks or something like that. Like if you make it more elegant or something like that, So you got to think about, what do you want it to look like? What's the story that you're telling with this? Don't let the name and stuff get you down. Actually try and figure out, you're like, well, what am I trying to say with this? What am I trying to push? What is it that's important? Right? That's what you need to go with. What's the story? Yep. Your typography and your illustrations have to work together in some way. Let's see about your thumbnails real quick. I think you were taking it too literal. Right? You feel the need to actually draw in some snack. You could also even take this, to the early 90s. Hold on. No, not open. Come on. I'm pretty sure everyone remembers doing this. Whoa. Not what I had planned, but it's okay. Right? But everyone remembers doing the... Right? You do right? And you do... Right? And you do this S. You're like, yeah. And then maybe something, because this is supersonic, you had the supersonic waves. I don't know. I really don't know what supersonic waves look like. It'd be something that you'd have to look up, Or I guess it would be wavy. Right? And then, I don't know. Then maybe it's Stephanie's salted snacks. Oh, excuse me. Turn off. There you go. That's something simple. You're like, oh, okay, well, maybe not that, because that looks pretty boring. I don't know how to put it together. Out of all the illustrations, if there is one you like the most, build from that. Right, because I'm even going. I'm looking at something like maybe it's S. You got S to the 4th power. Right, and then you go the C snack, right? And then you're like, why is it S4? Well, because it's Stephanie's salted sea snacks or something like that, right? You have this S, maybe that's way too big, but maybe you even bring the 4 over inside a little bit. Right? Something like that. Or okay, this thing is too big. Inches. Yeah. That's what I thought. We'll do a 4x4. Alright. So maybe you have, some interesting S. right? That kind of resembles the wave of the sea, right? And then you can put this, whoops, very technical 4, you know, something like that. Or maybe it's a knockout, right? So, or, you know, you can still do it like the actual thing, right? This is boring though, like when you just do S4, right? But if that 4 interacts with it in some way, maybe it's in the background. Right? You're like S4. The salted snack. Right? Maybe you do something like that. Right? Oh, you could make the S, right? So you got that wave. Right? You do that whole wave thing, right? And then when it comes back around, it becomes like an anchor. Right? Or whatever. Drawing anchors right off my head. You know, something like that. So you're combining the elements of the sea. Right? You know, something like that. I saw a logo that had something in the background behind the words. I was like, that it's cool and different. Right? So, I mean, you don't have to make it all super literal. Okay? So, it's completely up to you. But I think that something as simple as like this very elegant S with an anchor and then 4 if that's what you want, because you want it to be salted, you want it to be Stephanie's salted sea snacks or sea salted snacks, whatever, right? So you put that 4 in the background, you have the S and it's all bright, and the 4 in the back, you're like, all right, so there's obviously 4 S's, what does that mean? And then it's like the salted snack or the salted one, or I don't know, you come up with something clever, right? So then, yeah. You know, or maybe you don't even do that. You don't even say anything. You just say, you know, you just give the EST 2020, right? And then now we need to figure it out. Like, what was established in 2020? What's going on? You know, so play around with the size on this one, right? Looking at it this way, I would make that smaller. So, right? Does that make sense? Does that help? My computer's all laggy. Okay. Cool. Anything else? Anyone else? Curious? Thoughts? Comments? Concerns? Still trying to finish out my banner. This is where I'm at so far. Still need to drop my heads a little bit. Make them a little desaturated. Pulling too much attention from my main guy. So. Anyone? Questions? Comments? Anyone put anything in the discussion board? From which one? Under your finals? Or which one? Thanks, Stefan. I'm actually, while I'm waiting on Anita, I want to put this old-timey color over it, right? I don't know if you can, it's a little bit, but it's this rice paper, right? And so the thing is that that's what it, everyone back in old-timey Japan, they would do all these illustrations on rice paper. So I figured I could throw it on the top of it, and I'll probably erase some of this out just a little bit in certain areas so that it's all not just completely over everybody. But just to give it a nice little texture on top of the whole thing, I think it gives it just enough texture to it. So, I mean, I do like this color, right? I do like it like this, but I like the rice paper on top of it. Might have been in the menu. There was a message on discussion board that I didn't understand. It might have been in the menu. I do not know what you're talking about. Did something pop up? Did it was like, hey, this is going wrong or something? Grading system. Yeah, I see this down here too. I don't know what that is. Grading system selection. There will be a statement with 2 possible choices. Please select one choice for your situation. Note, any questions concerning this option should be directed to your instructor. Oh, let's click on it. I think this is the you have to either do you have to choose between pass fail or yeah, it's talking about pass fail or whether or not you actually want an actual grade. Remember we talked about this already, and I was like, hey, you got to tell me if you want traditional grading. So if you look on your message board, right, the institution has issued an extra thing that says a grading system selection, and it's just like, hey, you need to do this, but now they're making you officially do it, it seems like. So you want to click begin to start. Oh, begin. So you want to go in here and then it's like, all right, so when you click begin, I choose to switch back to the traditional grading system. I understand that once I select to do this, I will not be able to switch back again to the pass-fail. So what happens is they're actually trying to give you extra credit for actually doing it. That's funny. But this is to help the registrar, right? So please, everybody, right underneath the discussion board link, there's a thing called grading system selection. Go ahead, click on it. And if you want traditional grading, then you have to agree to switch to it. If you want to stay on the pass-fail, hit disagree, and then you'll stay on the pass-fail system. I know everyone sent me an email for those of you who want the actual thing, which I will be going through. But just in case you didn't want to email me and you want traditional, here you go. You have your opportunity here. Please, please, please fill this out so that the registrar doesn't have to fall apart when it's time to grade. Okay? Help them out. All right? You only get 1 point. Yeah. I didn't do it. right? This was put in through the school. I did not do this. So, you want that 1 point of extra credit? Go ahead. Go ahead and put it in there. All right? Any other questions, comments, concerns? Because if not, as usual, right? Sign off the live stream. I'll stay on chat for a couple more minutes. And, yeah. If you have any questions, let me know. All good. Alright, we got it all good. Anyone else? Don't get assessment up to. Don't forget to get these. Yes. Graphic design. Assessment. I'm doing it right now just for you. Assessment. Assignment. What are we at? 421. 421. Done. There you go. Assessment's up. This is for graphic design, so no freaking out to the senior class. Okay? Alright. If that's it, I will, like I said, I will go ahead and sign off. And then I'll stay on the chat just in case you guys need me. And I will see you guys on Wednesday. Alright. I'll see you guys on Wednesday.